Menscape, the podcast with Carl.J. Ashley, and proudly sponsored by the Functional Naturopathic Clinic.
So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Menscape, the podcast, sponsored by the Functional Naturopathic Clinic in Ennis. And welcome to this evening's guest, Mr. Pat Barry.
Good evening, Carol, and how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Yourself?
Absolutely shattered, but that's my own fault.
Thanks for joining us.
No, but I'm absolutely delighted to be invited, and thank you for asking me.
No problem at all. You might have seen a couple of the ones that we've done already. It's just an opportunity for us to get to know a little bit about you and what you do, and for the other gents in the Menscape group and beyond. So feel free to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I mean, where do I want to start? I mean, I thought I was retired when I retired from the civil service 5 years ago now, but it was 4 or 5 years ago. But we started this little media company, LIR Media, and we didn't know exactly, well, we knew a little bit that what we wanted it to evolve into, if you follow my drift. We had intended having a radio station, FM radio station as well, to go along with it side by side. But then we opened up probably 2 or 3 months before COVID. This COVID malaise struck the country, struck everywhere. So that lasted for 2 years, as you know, the last 2 years. So we've been concentrating on developing speech programs with our various podcasts on our platform. That's what we're doing.
Very good.
In parallel, then we've resurrected recently communication with the BAI again to try and resurrect, because we had made an application, but we left it go in the light of COVID, because really there was nobody around. None of the local companies we'd be depending on to get sponsorship and all of that. They weren't operating, and really there was no point in running into them the very minute they opened their doors either. That would be unfair, you know. So, I mean, because people are struggling, businesses struggling, the country's in an awful state financially and business-wise, although you mightn't think it if you watch some television stations, but it really is in an awful state. People are in, I have no idea how human beings in this republic are existing. The cost of living, the cost of everything, the challenges facing them on a daily basis is horrendous. Food banks are flourishing, and thank God for them, because I know an awful lot of people who cannot afford. I mean, people like myself, and not myself now, I'm saying people who are retired, who are expected to live on €270 a week. I'm talking about those people who are utterly and totally forgotten.
So we might swing back into that during the course of the dialogue. So what I'm hearing about you is you're retired, but then you got involved in LIR Media, which is an online radio platform, and that's taken up a lot of your time. We met through community radio in 6 Mile Bridge many moons ago, about 10 years ago, if the memory serves. Good
old Rinse FM. What a fantastic...
Have you always been involved in radio and broadcasting?
Oh gosh, before I left Cork, I had done a few programs in RTE Cork, not myself, but with other people, and that gave me the bug. I was only a guest on the show with Stevie Walter and Alf McCarthy, but I kept up the contact. And then when I moved down to Shannon, I got involved in the local community radio, Shannon Community Radio, for my sins. I just rambled in and got involved. And since then, that's over 20 years ago now. It's a bug, really. It's an interest. It's like for me now, for instance, where I am.
Yeah.
It's not a hobby now, really. It's a business where it has to pay its way, even though it's a struggle to do that now with the way it was the last few years. But I was involved in with Rinse FM, as you know yourself, Carl. Carl did a fantastic show, did bits of everything, really. That's the beauty about community radio. You can hop in and out.
I really enjoyed it, yeah.
Or a sports program or whatever. So it gives you confidence. It gives you, a feel for talking and speaking about subjects. And it helps you as well to order your thinking, and be able to think on your feet. Because if you go out live, as you know, you have to be able to think on your feet. You can't leave a space dead air. But Rinse FM was a good a good experiment in 6 Mile Bridge. But I always felt that in order for a community station to flourish, you need buy-in from the local community, you need support. And we're not making any criticism of any community. I'm just saying that there isn't that buy-in sometimes. So you know yourself that things begin and have a flourish and then it finishes. But then I got involved in Limerick City Community Radio. From that, then we developed a program called Man Talk there. And we developed a program called, myself and Martin, and we developed a program called You Cannot Be Serious, which is a chat program. It just gave us the...
Nothing to do with tennis or John McEnroe, eh?
Yeah, You Cannot Be Serious. Yeah, his voice was part and parcel of that radio intro, you know, but that helped us then, helped me anyway, to able to put together a speech program, which is a huge challenge. People don't realize it. It's a huge challenge to put together like what you're doing now, Carl.
I was quite lucky, Pat. I was a guest on I was invited to one that Dave Sheehan did of is it the Men Talk?
Yeah.
Yeah, last year and during the lockdown. And I guess we maybe have molded Menscape, the podcast, on similar lines. Yeah.
And I try to get as many people involved in Men Talk myself with a view of moving on then myself and getting them to take it on, you know, people who may not have the confidence to be on their own, but then after seeing them for a while, they are. It helps everybody anyway. I have no ego to think that I'm the only person who can do these things. I'd see it as a vehicle for I suppose, imbuing people with the spirit of... Yeah.
Is that an old Irish way of saying?
Yes, and helping them.
I think men's mental health is a huge issue, and a lot of the themes in the books that I've written and published would be about taking up mindfulness to help deal with addiction and depression and stuff. And if memory serves, you were at one of my book launches back in 2016, which we did in Shannon with a guest that you brought along that was involved in the men's shed in Shannon.
That's right. God, it seems a long time ago.
It does. It feels like a million years ago. And there was a gent had a shop in the Skycourt shopping centre there that we used called Eason's, was it?
Yeah, run by Owen Hoctor, you know, the old McLaughlin's, the old McLaughlin shop. It's still there. That's Eason's friend, that's our own. But as I said, that was the stock. Was it? No, I'm just trying to think of the name of that book. I have it anyway. I read the book myself, you know. The Stork and the Scorpion does cold turkey.
The book I wrote was called The Fox and the Scorpion Meets Cold Turkey.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That was good. I'd say I found that book very good.
Thank you. It was a bit long of a title for a book, with hindsight.
No, I wouldn't worry about the length because the title immediately intrigues you.
Yeah.
You know, immediately draws you in the title, and that's what you want, really. But as you said, you were on one of our programs, the early days of LIR. I don't know what program we did. Was You Can't? No, I forget it now. You Cannot Be Serious, is it? Or I forget now. But you're on the panel show, and remember the lads were giving you a slag over the book.
I've had to take a bit of stick over the book and the book title from a few different sources, but it doesn't deter me from the idea that if you know there's one gent out there who's not feeling 100%, maybe prone to depression, prone to addictions, and they're either just surrounded by arseholes, or they're fed up with the world, they're fed up with the job, they're in an unhappy relationship, whether it's with a marriage, kids, mortgage, and all the rest of it. And reading my book or coming across my book helps inspire them in some way to change that. And if that helps one single other bloke in the world, then it will have been worth doing.
I think so. That's what about Man Talk, the pro, and you'll probably find the same look.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't mean every human being. We're all humans with our own imperfections and our own challenges, and we all get depressed. Don't bother people telling me that I never get depressed, Pat. Every single human being gets down. You mightn't call it depression, you mightn't call it a mental illness, you mightn't call it whatever, but that's what it is. And it's what you have around you to fall back on. And some people, unfortunately, do not have those crutches to fall back on, like a partner, like a very good friend, like a circle of friends, like a place or anything. And that's the danger then. But I've been blessed through my life that I've had good friends. I might not have a whole lot of them. I don't mind saying that, but the friends I have, I can totally rely on, you know. And it's not about the amount of friends you have, it's the ones that will really come up trumps.
Correct.
When the chips are down.
Absolutely.
Like, I got sick before Christmas. I had to go to hospital. First time ever in my life that I had to go to hospital.
Yeah.
I made one phone call, a friend of mine, to one friend of mine, and that was it. To look after the house, bring stuff into me. I didn't have to make any more phone calls. So it's just fantastic, you know. And that's what I'm talking about, really. Things like that, you know. Things
yeah,
like
I can echo that. I went through a particularly bad sort of time in my personal life shall we say, 2019, where I lost my father, lost my wife, my marriage broke down, I lost my home, you know, and all of these things happened at the same time. And you keep your circle small and you keep your circle strong, and the right people stay in your life for a reason, and the ones that don't have your back, well, you realize soon enough they're not there anymore, or they're not on the end of the phone, or they don't care, or they were out for themselves. And that's, I think, part of developing the coping mechanisms and strategies in life is realizing that friends come and go, people come and go, relationships come and go.
Yeah,
you know,
that's true. That's very true. That's very true. You know, but as I said, it's important to have friends and keep in touch with them. You know, even if you're living on your own, don't feel alone. And that's just a stupid thing to say, like, but you know, I don't feel. I mean, I'll go home tonight, probably at 12 o'clock, eventually on my own, and go into my own house by myself. But I don't feel alone anymore, you know, thank God, you know. And it must be a dreadful feeling not to have a human being's voice around a person. And there are people who I believe, and I see them, I see some of them, I know some of them, and they have, how I describe them, Carol, I know, and this is not my own personal opinion, and they're living lives of quite desperation. And that's not my quote, you know, but I picked it up. But I think that's how you describe some people. It's very sad indeed. And the services for people in trouble are just almost non-existent.
I'd say two things to that, Pat, before we move on, right? One is, having gone from being a homeowner in a 5-bed semi in a village to then being in an apartment on my own, and having gone through that loneliness of going to bed every night on my own, it was quite it wasn't necessarily pleasant at the time, but it was quite an important experience for me to go through, to actually get myself in much better shape mentally, physically, emotionally. I was up early, 6 o'clock every morning, doing meditation, doing a bit of chanting. You know, I'd go out and I'd feed the birds. You know, it was weird not having a garden after so long, but there was a little bit of a lawn area, and I used to sit out, and, you know, I was looking after myself and taking care of myself. And actually, for the first time in my life, I grew up. I have no problem admitting that I'm 48, and I didn't actually grow up till I was about 44.
But it's never too late.
I had to face a few hard truths about myself, and the life that I'd built for myself was based on the need for approval from others. I was always trying to impress my wife or her parents or my parents, and at the end of the day, I went back to this apartment on my own. And I thought, you know what? The only person I need the approval of is myself. And They say rock bottom is a pretty solid foundation upon which to build yourself up from. And thank God, you know, my life is, I'm rebuilding every day, and positive things are happening every day. And I'm creating opportunities and availing of opportunities. And so it was an important thing to go through, even though it was quite unpleasant at the time and quite lonely. But it was good for me that I had a meditation practice as my refuge as well, you know?
Yeah.
Second thing I'd say to that, going back to the late 70s, early 80s, I remember going to visit my gran. She lived in a part of Manchester. She was in a council house and she was on her own. And she was lonely. Her husband died a long time ago. Her kids had grown up. And she literally used to have a copy of the Radio Times and a copy of the TV Times there. And there'd be a circle around what program she was going to watch that evening, you know? And she had an old black and white television, which was great until we tried to watch snooker on it. And we always had a problem them trying to discern the brown from the pink or the reds.
We all had that problem growing up.
No, it was the pink from the yellow and it was the brown from the reds, right?
Pot black.
But the way, like, there weren't any mental health services. There weren't any community services. People just went to the pub or they went to church or they, you know, so if you were lonely in the evening time, the television was there almost as a comfort in much the same way as the radio was.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I suppose she was a listener of one of my favorite programs, and I worked in was The Archers, and it's still running, is it?
The Archers, goodness me. Or was that Desert Island Discs that was the longest? I can't remember.
Oh, Desert Island Discs would be a long one as well. A great idea, fantastic idea, you know, fantastic idea.
So wrapping up on, tell us a bit about yourself and what you do. You're a Cork man originally, right?
Oh, from Cork, lived in Cork, and
what part?
In outside Mallow, between Mallow and Cork City. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Outside Mallow, and then the job brought me to Limerick, and eventually I decided to move down here. And the reason I wound up in Shannon is we couldn't get a house. Well, the houses in Limerick were expensive. The same old story. It was a long time ago. And one person I knew lived in Shannon. I knew one person. Well, I knew more people, if you follow my drift, but I didn't know they were living in Shannon, you know, at the time. And he said, "Look, Pat, you'll get a house cheap enough in Shannon." So I did. And kids were small. They were only starting school, so they all went to school in Shannon. They're all grown up. 3 kids. I have 1 daughter and 2 sons, so they're a couple of grandkids. So they're all grown up. And thank God they're healthy. That's all you want, and they're reasonably getting on well, every one of them. So that's great. And then I got a job in the civil. I was driving a taxi for a while. I got a job in the civil service. I was there for 17 years before I retired. So enjoyed every day. But people say that's a cliche. It's not. No, they become your family. You know, your extended family, your work colleagues become your extended family. But it is true to say that I have 2 or 3 good friends from who I worked with. I'm not saying they were all enemies. I'm saying you leave that family, and it's a huge change from Friday retiring, parties and all. The following Monday, you don't have to get up. You have no job. Your family is finished with you, your extended family. And now, what do you do? What do you do? So myself and Mary Honan, who we started this LIR media, this madness, 2.5 years ago.
And you're still going strong.
We're still plugging away, and we have some irons in the fire that we have to follow up now with Zoom meetings and stuff. And we have very, very recently, through our contact with what's her name? Susie Quattro's management agency, and other people who spun off of that. So we have possibility of a hook up there, you know, and of course I'll get to interview her when she's finished her touring in another 10 days' time. I'll get to interview one of my heroes growing up, Susie Quattro.
Susie Quattro from the 80s, right?
Way back in the 70s.
Before that?
Yeah, even in the 70s. Well, she's 72 now. I don't mind saying, she doesn't mind saying her age.
Yeah.
But she was one of the very first females to lead a rock band, a rock group. Yeah. So she paved the way for an awful lot. She's on Detroit in Michigan. Devilgate Drive, Can to Can would be some of her big hits. But anyway, that's her. Nice, settling in England now, obviously, but fabulous person as well, you know, outside being a rock star.
Very good. So I'm gonna fire into a 1-minute quick fire round here.
Yep.
Have you ever written a book?
I haven't finished the book. I haven't published a book, but I'm in the process of doing one.
Ah, fantastic. I know a fellow that helps people write books.
Actually, you're the very first to be taught that.
Fantastic. Yeah, I set up a company there about maybe 12 to 18 months ago called The Right Coach, to help people who have a story to tell and want to be able to tell it, but they're not sure where to start, and give them some guidance through the process. That's great. I'm looking forward to that. So, Pat?
Yeah, I just write down things since the 1970s, and well, I don't know, will some of that go into a book now or not, but we'll see.
So have you written a book? Yes, it's ongoing, but not finished yet.
Not finished yet, I would put down.
Have you ever driven a Ferrari?
Yes.
Have you ever jumped out of a plane?
Yes.
Have you ever rode a horse?
Well, no, hang on. I qualify out of a helicopter.
That's still pretty, up there. Have you ever ridden a horse?
Yes.
Have you ever cheated death or escaped death?
No.
Have you children? I think you answered that one already.
Yeah.
Have you ever eaten an insect?
Yes.
Have you ever walked on hot coals?
Yes.
Have you ever done public speaking?
I have, unfortunately.
It's easy to ask you what you haven't done, Pat.
Well,
have you ever been abducted by aliens?
Not that I'm aware of.
And finally, in that section, what was your best Joe Rogan podcast?
No, did he interview Ben Shapiro?
Ben Shapiro. The name rings a bell, but I didn't see it.
I think I saw him maybe 10 or 12 minutes, you know. As I said to you before we started, Joe Rogan, I don't know, you know, what kind of person he is himself. I don't know anything about him other through the podcast, but I mean, he got an awful lot of money to go over to Apple. Is it Spotify?
Yeah.
And I don't watch him anymore now. Nothing against Joe Rogan, but
he comes over really well, and he's been doing it for years. And I think,
and some of the podcasts aren't accessible except you subscribe.
That's right. Yeah, the viewing figures are larger than cable TV in America, so he's massive.
In America,
yeah.
Well, flavors come and flavors go in America. Not being disparaging towards all 360 million people in America, as we know. So, you know, just Jordan Peterson 5 or 6 years ago, who was huge. Now it's Joe Rogan. It'll be, what's the name of the other fellow with the glasses? Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore. Did you ever watch him?
Never heard of him. Excuse my ignorance.
Jimmy Dore is funny, man. If you need a laugh at yourself. You know, it's funny, you know. Of course, I don't know about, I mean, I suppose the purpose of any entertainment is diversion for the person watching it, is to lose themselves and get away from life's rat race in their head and in their house, I suppose. And looking at podcasts, I like podcasts I think the first type of podcast I ever came across was the TED Talks.
Yeah.
Remember them? They're still going, and they're just magnificent. If you want a specific subject matter and a person speaking about it, they're not necessarily an expert in that field, but they have an interest in it, which to me, I love that. I love, and they do, the PBS and NPR do some cracking public service broadcasting, you know, in their own right. You know, there are very few. I mean, obviously, there's huge amount of stations in the United States. You could be forever going through them, you know. But I think that they generally have good ones, you know, good ones. Quality.
I think with the advent of the so-called pandemic and the lockdowns and the fact that a lot of us were at home, maybe not out and about as such, the platform itself garnered a lot more popularity. And I was watching Joe Rogan podcasts with as diverse guests as Jordan Peterson, Mike Tyson. I mean, the one with Mike Tyson was amazing. Who could believe that he was this intelligent, sensitive, caring man? He was the world
Well,
heavyweight champion of the world, and he came over really intelligent. You know,
I met him. I met him briefly when he came to Limerick. I'm a boxing fan all my life, and my dad was a boxer. But Mike Tyson, to me, I mean, from where he came to where he's gone to, and it's been an incredible roller coaster of a life. And it's a
you met him in Limerick.
That he still, he came over. Father Joe Young brought him over to Limerick a good few years ago now. You know.
Yeah.
And he's a very affable man, and he thinks a lot. I think that's, I don't mean to as a cliche, but he does think a lot about things. And obviously, I mean, Costamato was his mentor and helper, got him off the streets, brought him into his own house, made him part of his family. And of course, if you look at his life, when Costamato died, the people who were with Tyson, then obviously he went completely off the rails, and some of that was his own fault, I know that, but it's also as soon as he got into the clutches of certain people, really he went downhill and his career finished, you know, which is very sad.
He's still going. He's still fighting fit, and he was speaking very positively about, again, men's mental health awareness, the benefits of psilocybin. He'd become something of a self-read expert on mushrooms and certain types of mushrooms and the benefits of mushrooms. And to hear him speak, you could tell he was a very educated man in the areas that he'd homed in on. And the juxtaposition between, you know, seeing him when I was a lot younger, just swinging incredible punches around the place, and the image around him that was cultivated in order to sell, you know, tickets for boxing matches or pay-per-view or what have you. These people understand that they're a commodity. You know, they become a persona, and very much that. And he's clearly rebuilt himself with authenticity into who he doesn't give a fuck what you think of him or anything. He's on his own track, and he's telling it like it is for him and speaking his truth, and that resonated deeply with me, you know. He
did his time. He served his time. He did his time for his activity, and he's 53 or 4 now. I think 53 or 4. But there's no doubt about it. In my lifetime, apart from Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson was one of the greatest heavyweights. From 1985 to 1990, he was untouchable, like a god in the ring. You know, he was a small heavyweight, but he was dynamic and powerful. But I liked boxing, as I said, you know, and I like Mike Tyson. I like people who was on the street. He was thrown around from home to home. He was more or less abandoned, in and out of jail. And as I said, Costamato, he acknowledges that himself in one of his films he made about Costamato, the role he had to play in his life, you know, saved his life. You know, anyway, so was interesting.
I'm more of a Buddhist these days than into pugilism, but I did like Mike Tyson's interview with Joe Rogan. So where we have a couple of other questions here, what's the best book you've ever read and why? And even open that up into 2 or 3 books that you'd recommend to the other gents in the group, because if it's hard to nail down just one, what books have you come across that have maybe impacted your life or changed your life that you'd recommend to others?
Well, I suppose the first influential book, I read a lot of books I like reading, was The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. Now that really was just people, it's still available, widely available. So really, you know, that's one. Another one was
hold on. Yeah. The prophet is Khalil Gibran. He was a Lebanese poet and author, right?
That's right, yeah. Gibran, yeah.
Sorry, go on.
And God Passes By. Now, that's a good title for a book.
Same author?
No, God Passes By, Shoghi Effendi.
Spell that?
Shoghi.
Shoghi.
Effendi. Now, I must confess, that's one of the books. I'm a Baha'i, a member of the Baha'i faith. So that book had a huge influence on me.
Yes.
God Passes By. And it's
by Shoghi Effendi. That's new to me now. You're a mine and fountain of knowledge, Pat.
Is it? You could, I think, you could look it up anyway. It's thing, but I don't know. Well, I probably, sometimes the funny thing about books, Carol, is you get a book sometimes at the right time for you, but you don't know it at the time. Do you understand me? I was in the throes of alcoholic stupor most of the time. I worked night shift in the shoe company in Mallow at the time. My dad got me a job there. And at night time, because I was my dad's son and he was highly regarded, he was 40 years in the shoe company, I got an easy job, let's face it. And I had very little to do at night, during the shift, maybe 2 or 3 things.
I hear you.
So I got this book and I had loads of time to read it because it's a big, thick book. And I had to grapple with the Persian names and stuff, but then I devised the methodology of, rather than looking up who they were, if the name of Shoghi Effendi, for instance, came up, I'd give that the letter A, and I'd give, say, Carl the letter B. So I was able to do my own reading. I was able to read it quicker then. Do you understand me? That was just me. It worked for me. And it was just so profound, so prophetic, so practical at one hand. You can take whatever you like out of it. You could take it at a very superficial level. You could have an in-depth and discuss it in your own head and work out each chapter. I like to read a full chapter and then take notes. That's my methodology, really. Take a note after the chapter, say, what's this about? I might read it again before I go on to the next chapter, but that's just me. This is the way I read that book, God Passes By, and the veracity and the truthfulness and the honesty of the message in it resonated with me at the time. So therefore, it was a no-brainer for me at the time. And I would credit it with helping me, myself personally, to give up alcohol. Because I was in hospital when I was in my late teens, early 20s, from alcohol a time. And I remember a doctor, the 3rd time I was in there, he said to me, Pat, he said, you have 2 choices. If you want to kill yourself, keep drinking. And if you want to live, stop drinking. It's up to you.
You made it quite simple. Yeah.
I was delighted. Of course, I wasn't delighted at the time he said it to me, but looking back, it was, you can give you all the tablets you like, you can give you all the help you like, you can go in and try it, but you have to, I cannot give up the drink for you, Carol, or you can't give up the drink for me, in my case. And I credit with him saving my own life, saving my own skin, bit of reality is good at times, But it worked for me. Things work for me on an individual level. They might work for someone else. I don't know. But that was the 2nd book, was it? Yeah.
Yeah. Was there any others that had an impact?
3 books. The 3rd book I loved was And Quite Flows the Dawn. Boris Pasternak. He was he won the Nobel Prize for Literature. Boris Pasternak, and Quite Flows the Dawn. Flows the what? And Quite Flows the Dawn, the river Don, the Don. And marvelous book. People should, and it's still available. You can get it in libraries anyway. You get most books in libraries. And if they're not in the library for people who don't have money, like all of us, join your library, which is free. Ask for the book. If they don't have it in the library, most librarians will order one in for you. I
love books. I read and write a lot, but I know there's people out there like my son. Oh, Dad, books, that's your thing. He prefers to watch movies. So there's people like audio books as well. And, there are varying sort of ways in which we can acquire information if the hunger and the desire is there. Yeah. For you, it sounds like those books came along at the right time, just when you needed them.
Yeah, when you're looking back, I mean, it sounds blasé, and pithy a bit, but really, but I didn't know at the time, if you understand. I mean, looking back, that's it. And I still read. I like, I like reading history, historical stuff. I love the stuff, anything on the Civil War. I do a little podcast called Heroes and Icons, if people are interested in it.
Yeah.
And I did a whole, they're across all the disciplines. I did one on Whitehair, I did one on Bat Masterson, I did one on Max Schmeling, I did one on Mary Pickford. So, I mean, it's just interests I have myself, people who might be forgotten about, and the podcasts are short, only 15 to 20 minutes. All I hope to do with them is to inspire people to read more about something. That's all. A little thumbnail of them, because that's all you can do.
You make sure I have those links and get them over to me, and I'll share them when we publish the podcast.
Oh, good.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I have
books, what about your best trip abroad and why?
Oh gosh. It had to be Israel.
Israel.
My daughter and husband worked there, and I had never been, obviously. And the flight got in there at 10 to 1 in the morning, their time. I flew from Cork to Schiphol, which is in a huge, my God, were you ever in Schiphol Airport in the Netherlands?
No, I don't think I was.
It's a hub, one of the main hubs.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I didn't know where, I didn't know, just so big. I said, I'll never find the flight I'm supposed to get. I'll never find it. So I panic. I was on my own going over, you see, but I met this fella from Cork. Actually, I was standing, and I said, where are you going? He said, I'm going to Israel. Why are you? I said, and I said, well, of all the, and I said, well, why are you going there? I said to him. He said, I worked there. He worked in Jaffa for years and years. He was coming back from a holiday in Cork with his family. So he's going to Jaffa. Jaffa oranges, I suppose people associated with Jaffa oranges.
Yeah.
Jaffa. So I relaxed immediately then, and so I didn't panic, and we were able to stroll. And he said, Pat, that we have plenty of time. We have plenty of time for the flight. So that was.
What age were you?
Well, I was in. Fairly recently. That was
okay.
maybe,
so you went on kibbutz or anything like that?
Oh God, no. Although I know friends of mine that did, but I went over and we flew into Tel Aviv, and my daughter was in Haifa, which is the second or third city of the Bay of Haifa, is where all the cruise ships come in from the Mediterranean. I know you might have seen in photographs.
So there's the port of Haifa, there's Jaffa, there's Tel Aviv, Jerusalem. You traveled around a bit, right?
So Tel Aviv, and in Haifa, where the cruise ships come in.
Yeah.
It's so funny in a way. All along the waterfront and all along the quays, all the modern shops you see, Tops, and you see all these branded shops that you see in downtown New York. It's no same as any, but then as you go back into the Haifa property, away from the bay, up the hill of Mount Carmel and all there, it's the old style buildings, it's the old city, the original city you're in then. You know, total contrast as you go up the hill, for the want of a better description. Of course, you have Mount Carmel, which is in Haifa, has spiritual significance for many religions, including Christians, Jews, and ourselves now, the high faith as well. So, I mean, you have a huge spiritual, and you have the Cave of Elijah isn't far away either from you in that area. Nazareth is only over the road, and Bethlehem. And so you have all this.
And we're not too far away from Easter. There was some famous geezer to do in Nazareth, Pat.
There was, yeah. And so you have all.
So you went to visit all the places of religious significance, or?
I got to see one or two of them, because I mean I wasn't there that long, you know, about 12 days, and my daughter and husband were working for some of the days, which left me to my own devices, so I didn't mind that.
Fantastic.
Walking down, from anybody who's interested in coffee. You like coffee?
Me personally, no.
Well, say you, or anybody who loves coffee, like me.
Yeah, lots of people do, yeah.
Walk down Ben Gurion Avenue from Mount Carmel. On the right-hand side, going down Ben Gurion Avenue, you'll find every kind of a coffee shop there. And there you have Lebanese, you have Palestinian coffee shops run, you have Arabs, you have Christians, you have even English couple running a coffee shop there. But it's the smells. And when I went down there, one first was just fantastic, the smell of coffee in the morning. And there you go. But that's just people might
that
want
captured your imagination, obviously.
Well, it did. I mean, I had no idea what to expect. And to
Is there a chapter in your book on it?
Oh, absolutely, because I mean, the ongoing trouble between Palestinians and Jews, or Palestinian and the state of Israel, for the want of a better word, not Palestinian and Jews, because they interact like on an ordinary level, you know, like you and I, like we're going for our pizza, we're going for our chips, we're going to the pub, we're going to the cafe, there's a Palestinian Jewish building which was over across from me, and I went in there one day, and both young people, much younger than me, were running this center, Palestinian Jewish center for youth center, but they have craft shops and coffee shops. So I went in, I was intrigued. It was just fantastic. There are only people like you and I, when you go away from the politics of it, you don't want to say. It's just shocking why they can't get together and get it fixed, you know, really on a human level, because both sides, both people are
certain forces and certain special interests have a vested interest in maintaining division and
that's exactly
disharmony, unfortunately, Pat.
Yeah, and they're not interested in unity or anything like that, or peace. Or I agree with you there. It's just shocking and sad, but hopefully someday.
I've never been there firsthand to those places to witness it, so I've only got second-hand opinions from what I've read and what I've learned and what I've seen, and I'm not going to go into it too much, but it's sad.
All I say to people is go there, just go there, and look, make up your own mind about these things, but please go there and read as much as you want about it. Be informed from every angle. Be informed, you know, and there you go. I mean, the trouble started. We're not going to talk about the whole thing. The trouble started in 1948 with the divisions that were drawn in the sand, you know.
When was the Balfour Declaration?
Yeah, in 1948. So when the state of Israel was created and all the other states around were divided up, and when all of that happened, really, they should have been more aware of the tribal.
Well, no, there was an agenda for doing it. Like a lot of the events in world history that have shaped world history, whether it's the assassination of JFK, the so-called moon landings, the First World War, the Second World War, the sinking of the Titanic, it goes on and on and on. For every event that we've learned about in the history books at school, there's an alternative narrative explaining how and why those events happened. And it's not the same as the public or official version of those events. And the Balfour Declaration and the creation of the State of Israel would be one such as well, you know?
It was indeed, and obviously everybody is entitled to a homeland, whether we're Irish, Jewish, or Russian or American. I don't know. Everybody's entitled to their homeland, you know, and to live in harmony, if you like. But that's the way life throws up these things, you know. I mean, when you consider the Middle East, I mean, the only democracy in the Middle East is the State of Israel, the only one in the whole Middle East.
Well, what is a democracy?
They are surrounded by.
How do you define a democracy?
The government elected by the people, like we have in this country.
And so you don't believe that democracy is an illusion. You believe that parliamentarianism exists and there isn't special interests behind all the so-called parties like your reds, your blues, your greens, and your yellows.
Oh, I know. I mean, this is a simplistic argument so that human beings can understand complex issues in my thing, because we are all faced with decisions in in this country. I live in County Clare. There's a list of candidates put in front of me for election. We don't have a system that's better than it perfected yet. So we do as much as we can to effect change by who we cast our vote for. And the same in the State of Israel. They have a democracy. They change their government every 3.5, 4 years, 4 years roughly. In Israel, every other country around them are tyrants of some sort, or whatever they are. So let's, on a government level, I'm talking about, not the people, not the mass of people around in all the countries, I'm seeing. And so I cannot understand it for the life of me, why there's such enmity and animosity towards a people that were the genocidal slaughter of them, not so very long ago in this continent, where we turned a blind eye to it. Is shocking. And now we have the same situation again, where of course there's wrong on both sides, but to deny a people the right to exist in their own country is anathema to me. You know, anathema. After being there and seeing the magnificent country that it is, you know, and leaving the politics aside, to the magnificent people that they are, you know. Abbas and his wife, so-called leader of Palestine, they're having an election in 14 years. They're run by 2 terrorist organizations, that's it. Where does he go for his medical treatment? He doesn't go to Ramallah. He doesn't go to, he leaves his mansion, his 26 million euro mansion, Abbas and his wife, and they go to Tel Aviv for the best medical care. Where do their family come for the best medical care? They fly to Tel Aviv. I mean, riddle me that, Carol, riddle me that, you know?
Yeah,
anyway,
as I say, I'm not going to go into politics,
that. You'll never win with politics, you know. That's why I flirted with the idea of being involved in politics, but really,
yeah,
you know,
I can tell that about you. You've got a kind of a sort of I can't say that someone has a political manner, can you? But you seem to have an affectation for politics. Yeah,
I had an interest a good few years ago, and I didn't take the jump over the fence. So I said no. But you see, you have children.
Sorry, go on. Yeah,
you have children in your family. So you said, oh, they're all small. They'd never see me if I was successful. They'd never see me. I'd never see them. And I said no, maybe later on. But then later on, that's it.
I think what encapsulates my attitude towards politics, and I'm fairly apolitical, is that the ones that are responsible for making the decisions should be the ones who shun leadership and want it the least. So it's effectively, they're encouraged to do it for the benefit of the people and not for their own self-benefit. But I'd say anyone with the best will in the world that goes into politics, I remember seeing scenes of joy when mass murderer Tony Blair arrived into Parliament on the crest of a wave in the 90s. I'd say they get in with the backing of the people and green behind the ears and with the best of intentions. And there's a brown paper envelope on the desk. Forget everything you thought you knew till now, sunshine. This is how it fucking is. Yeah. And this is what you'll be doing from now on. Yeah. And I don't know, I maybe I'm cynical about politics, but I think if you go back to the days of Disraeli and Gladstone, maybe the likes, you know, when parliamentarianism was a thing, was there integrity in politics then? Was there statesmanship? I don't see anyone in the landscape of English or Irish current affairs or politics that I would regard as having skills of statesmanship.
You know, I agree what you said in the very beginning of that, is that the qualities necessary to go into politics and serve in a spirit of service to your fellow person and to the state, those qualities are the qualities you should be able to see in somebody, man or woman, and put them forward for election. Unfortunately, as you said, this doesn't happen. Like, I'd love a situation whereby you look around, say County Clare, we have 4 Dáil seats and we need to elect 4 people every 4 or 5 years to represent us. The people who we should be entitled to vote for and go forward, as you said, are the people that display all those wonderful qualities like honesty, integrity, you know, being moral, being spiritual, if you want, for the want of a better word, bodily speaking, be aware,
but just
be
conscientious.
be kind, and all of that. Those are the important qualities, because, you know, you can't take money and power with you when you die, but what you can take with you when you die as a human being, as a spiritual soul going to the next life, is those qualities that you have perfected in your lifetime, like honesty, like integrity, like being spiritual. These are your arms and legs to equip you in the next life. That's what I believe in anyway, you know.
Yeah, I like that. And I'd say that opinion of yours has been developed and has been expressed well, but with the benefit of having the wisdom and experience of maybe many lifetimes where you've carried that soul personality through. So your integrity is everything. It's your calling card. It's what you say and saying what you mean and meaning what you say and doing what you say you'll do are maybe one thing that we can aspire to. But as I say, I think in politics, there are certain interests behind the scenes that you don't get to hear about that control the journalists, just like they control the politicians, just like they control the media companies and the stooges that they employ on huge, ridiculous wages to then serve and fulfill this public narrative that isn't actually necessarily in the best interest of the public. So where is your integrity then? And you might sort of come across certain individual politicians who you might think they've been successful in business or they've been successful in life, and they have some integrity and they put themselves forward, and there's a smear campaign against them, or they're black marked by certain sort of, organizations in the media to devalue that person and what they stand for. So I'd say, would there be much of an appetite for people, an encouragement to go into politics? If it's been in your family, my father had a brother who was the Lord Mayor of Manchester, Pat, and unfortunately died during his years office. So he had like 2 funeral services. One was a grand affair in Manchester Town Hall with people with yokes around their neck and dignified and honourable members and so on. And then we had a small family sort of ceremony aside from all of the grand, I wouldn't say it was pomp and circumstance, but it was quite a grand occasion for a sort of fairly humble family, you know.
Absolutely.
My cousin then was involved in politics as with the Liberal Democrats in Manchester, and had some hand in shaping the future of the way things were there between Conservatives and Labour. I think Paddy Ashdown was around at the time, and the Lib Dems went from being also-rans to actually getting MPs and stuff. Having been in Ireland for the last 20 years, if I was Irish and from here, I'd probably lean more towards the Republican side of things. And not Republican in the sense of an affinity towards violence or terrorism, but a Republican as in the core principles of a founding republic: the freedom of travel, freedom of speech, freedom of peaceful assembly, and the things that are written into the Irish Constitution, which you're going to pronounce better than I can, the Bunran, the Bunrocks Net Heron. Which I don't pronounce it very well. My apologies. So the core founding messages in the Constitution of Ireland make me a Republican. I might have grown up in the northwest of England and had family involved in politics, but I'd be fairly pro-republic and anti-monarchy. I don't believe in birthright, especially not when a German family just adopts a different name and then convinces everybody they've the right to rule by birthright. I think that's utterly ridiculous. But hey, if we all had the same opinion, the world would be a boring place, right?
It would, and of course, obviously, the British still love the monarchy, the vast majority of them. There's 66 million people in Great Britain, I think. Yeah, and I think the last time they did a survey on it last year, I think, or the year before, overwhelming majority for their ceremonial role they have and all of that. So that won't
it looks
change.
Like they're around to stay. The next generation of descendants of the Germans.
Probably. Probably.
Yeah.
We hope that the situation in Europe does not escalate further as we're speaking here between Russia and Ukraine. We just hope that we don't see the conflict being repeated again like we had just a short 70 years ago, is it? Yeah, 70, 75 years ago, you know? And I hope it'll be contained soon. And there's a lot of
I never met anyone that wants a war, Pat. I'm not as well traveled as yourself, but I've been to Sri Lanka, I've been to Thailand, I've been to America, I've been to Canada, and anywhere I've gone in the world, I never met anyone that wants a war.
No,
you know,
nobody
I've met guys that, you know, they want to look after their family, they want to look after their wife, their kids, they want to pay their bills, and, you know, be left alone to live their life with autonomy, sovereignty, and respect. You know?
Absolutely. And I mean, we in this country are pretty vulnerable, as we know. We make nothing anymore. We grow very little. So we're a very vulnerable, exposed country if there's a shortage of anything. I mean, it's all very fun.
But I would spin that now. I'd spin that around completely for you, right? What I'd say there is that's not by accident. Obviously, all the manufacturing's been driven out for a reason, same as what happened in England, right?
Yeah.
But Ireland has an ancient, rich spiritual heritage going back to the times before Brehon Law, before the Druids, before the Celts. And Ireland has an ancient, rich spiritual tradition which is slowly coming back, bubbling under the surface and to the fore. And I think Ireland has a leading role to play in the future of the world, in the future of where we go in terms of the spiritual direction of people and the new world that's being created, you know? Absolutely.
And I think that the reality is in that we have to diversify in our practices of growing our own food. I mean, it's a no-brainer. We shouldn't even have to have a discussion about it, because it's all very fine having Google and Facebook and the great lads, they're up and down. They don't do anything. They add nothing to the joy of life. They add nothing to the fabric of society. Absolutely, they create nothing.
Apart from the fact that you can find LIR Media and Menscape the podcast on Google, right?
Yeah. Good save there.
I might just throw that in there. Come here. Yeah. I'm just conscious we're rabbiting on a bit there, and I'm conscious of the time, and I don't want to keep you. So I'm going to sort of give it another 5 minutes or so before I get kicked off anyway. Such are the joys of Zoom these days. I've got a couple more questions for you before we go into the final quick fire round. Okay. We talked a little bit about books. What's your favorite movie and why? And what's your favorite song and why?
Movie.
Movies.
That's a very difficult. I suppose the first Godfather film, the one in 70s with Brando in it. I think that was
the gent from Last Tango in Paris.
The Godfather movie was just magnificent, absolutely magnificent. As good as it gets. Another one recent one with Jack Nicholson. That was a fantastic film as well. Yeah, he wouldn't be my favorite individual, but he was magnificent in that, you know.
I enjoyed that too,
You wouldn't get away with the humor in that now, you know, as good as it gets, as you do. And I suppose Any Which Way You Can with Clint Eastwood. I just love that film with the orangutan in the film. Yeah, Clive. That to me, if you want to cheer yourself up, lads, and you're on your own, just put on Clive and, you know, there you go. Have your glass of apple juice if that's what you have, or coffee or whatever.
So we've got As Good as It Gets, The Godfather, and the last one, Any Which Way.
Any Which Way But Loose, is it? I think that's
Any Which Way But Loose.
Yeah, Clive.
Clint Eastwood and Clyde.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So songs, I know from knowing you back from our radio days, you were big into your jazz, right?
Yeah,
so it'd be pretty unfair to make you pick a favorite song or a favorite artist and why, but try if you can to home in on something.
Well, I mean, just get the jazz out of the way first. I met a lot of my heroes. I met a lot of my heroes from the world of jazz, which really is like Ella Fitzgerald in Cork Jazz Festival, like Dizzy Gillespie. I met them and had a chance to speak to them. So, I mean, and of course, they're no longer with us. And Frank Sinatra, I met him. And I met Liza Minnelli and Sammy Davis Jr. in London. So, I mean,
did you get selfies with them? If
no, there
Facebook
no
these days, you'd get your
so long ago. It was before the selfie era.
There you go. But you've been about. You've met some very famous people there.
But a quirky song that resonated with me from the 69, 70 was Mouldy Old and Lieutenant Pigeon, that group. And this was the first time that a son and a grandmother, I think, made the charts in Britain. Mouldy Old is a song, and it's just fantastic. They're just quirky, you know.
I inherited an old 7-inch. It was a 7-inch little on vinyl of Mungo Jerry in the summertime.
Oh yeah,
that sounds even quirkier than that.
Mungo Jerry was good, but then Mouldy Old. But of course, my favorite group outside of jazz of all time, and they were my favorite group, and I think they were much better than the Beatles, which were the Kinks. I think the Kinks were the 60s for me.
Ray Davies.
Itchy-Coo Park. You know, Itchy-Coo Park, that's just magnificent. Anything they wrote, most of what they wrote, I think, was magnificent, in my opinion. So the Kinks did it for me in the 60s.
So what was the connection there? I thought Itchy-Coo Park was the Small Faces.
No,
was there an incarnation of the Kinks into the Small Faces? Or
what the Kinks doing up in Itchy-Coo Park? No, there was a line from the song Waterloo Sunset.
Yeah.
Waterloo Sunset, sorry, not Itchy-Coo Park. Waterloo Sunset was the song. And we were getting high in the park, getting high in Itchy-Coo Park or something like that. That was a question in the quiz that I put into a quiz one time.
I would have loved to have done more of the Legends radio shows that I did. I
have them, you know, still on disc at home, some of them.
Yeah, they were brilliant, really enjoyable. I really enjoyed researching them and writing them and doing them. But there was some that I wanted to do that I never got around to.
But funny enough, they were 25-minute programs. That's what I based the Heroes and Icons on in the podcast, was short, quirky programs, give you little bits of information, inspire you to listen to their music or to read about them. So it's all very, very, very interesting, you know. So,
Pat Barry, before I thank you for being a guest today, I'm going to fly into a 1-minute quick fire round. There's no agenda with these. It's just the first thing that comes to mind. And if you feel uncomfortable answering any of them, just say skip or pass.
Oh, Skippy, like this, yeah.
Are you ready?
Why don't
Aldi or Lidl?
Sorry?
Aldi or Lidl?
Aldi.
Pizza or Chinese?
Chinese.
Blonde or brunette?
Brunette.
Manchester or Liverpool?
Oh gosh. Well, I've always loved the true personal opinion, personal connections with Liverpool. You mean the soccer team?
No, just Manchester or Liverpool. Can be the city, can be music, can be football, whatever it is that you feel.
Oh, if music, to have to be Manchester.
Hurling or rugby?
Oh, hurling every day.
Day or night?
I like night.
Spots or stripes?
Like spots, yeah.
Brown or pink?
Brown.
Kerry or Dublin?
Oh, Kerry, absolutely.
Sunrise or sunset?
Sunset, nothing like
England or Germany?
Oh, England, it provided me with a nice living for a while, so really England.
Scotland or Wales?
Oh, it would have to be the Taffies. I've worked with a lot of Taffies. It has to be Wales.
Mother Teresa or Gandhi?
Oh gosh, oh, no, that's no brainer, Gandhi.
Buddhism or Catholicism?
Neither really.
Gardening or gym?
Well, gardening, I mean, inside in the gym, breathing your own air. No, not for me.
Boccherini or Echo and the Bunnymen?
Echo and the Bunnymen, yeah, I like Echo and the Bunnymen.
House or techno?
House.
TV or radio?
Radio.
Spain or France?
Spain.
Humans or plants?
Or humans.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Red or blue?
Red.
Yellow or green?
Green.
Philosophy or psychology?
Well, what do they say about a discipline that begins in words and ends with words? You might as well forget about it. So that describes both of them. So I'd go for philosophy, yeah.
Brazil or Argentina?
Or Brazil.
Onions or carrots? Onions or carrots?
Onions, of course, yeah. More flavor.
We're planting both next week, as it happens, after you were saying about growing food.
Yeah.
Seaweed or cabbage?
Cabbage.
A good Irish fella likes his cabbage, right?
Yeah.
Friday or Sunday?
Sundays.
Roses or tulips?
Tulips.
Salt or pepper?
Pepper.
Tennis or cricket?
Or cricket.
Fire or water?
Water.
Earth or air?
Air.
Sun or moon?
Moon.
Emerald or ruby?
Emerald.
Silver or gold?
Silver.
Beer or wine?
Neither.
Meat or cheese?
Meat.
Jazz or funk?
You know the answer to that.
I know the answer to that one, we do, yeah.
Yeah.
And I've got here Ed Sheeran or the Velvet Underground?
Or the Velvet Underground.
The Rolling Stones or the Pogues?
Roman.
And finally, beach or forest?
A beach.
Brilliant. Well done, Pat.
Yeah.
Thanks for giving us an insight into who you are and what you do. You're going to send us on the details for LIR Media.
I will. And Carl, it's been a blast. I really enjoyed it, you know. And
no problem. When I was just flown by there, Pat, I could talk to you all night long.
If some of the listeners think I need serious help there, feel free to email me.
It's been a pleasure, and we'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Carl. Take care.
Menscape, the podcast with Carl.J. Ashley.